we've got time for about 3 or 4 questions. If anyone has anything they'd like to ask Jill. Anyone? Dave?
I'm just wondering where you're at with the constitutional challenge here, like the case here in British Columbia, or the constitutional challenge that you're doing.
Great.
How it's going here in British Columbia.
So around the same time, there were 2 constitutional challenges that started, one in Ontario and one in British Columbia. The one in Ontario is the one that's been making the news because it was actually able to move forward through the provincial courts. The one in BC, however, has taken an interesting segue. It got stopped. We were trying to swab the Sex Workers United Against Violence was one of the plaintiffs in that case. So we were trying something new. We wanted to have an organization rather than an individual because there's a lot of risk for women in stepping forward and going through that constitutional challenge process. For example, in Ontario, Ms. Bedford, her name has become synonymous with this case. So rather than expose somebody to that, we really wanted to be able to kind of use an organization to take that role. So initially the court here, and we've gotten caught on that, it's called a standing issue. The courts here didn't want to give that organization standing to be able to make that complaint. And we appealed it and won the appeal. And that more recently went to the Supreme Court of Canada. And it's become an issue that's going to impact organizations across Canada. So if we do win the standing issue, that will change social justice law across Canada, not just for sex workers, but for all kinds of organizations. So, an interesting side.
Because I'm mounting a constitutional challenge against vengeance tickets here.
Oh, right,
in
yeah.
August 2nd, so I'm just wondering how, if it's against our right to safety also, to look after it. So I was interested in that because it sounds like they actually kind of cross over.
There's a lot of parallels.
Yeah, thank you.
I was just wondering how recent were those statistics that you found?
Sorry, can you say?
How recent are those statistics that you have on the screen, and if they are pretty well representative of today?
There, yes. So some of the papers that were published, the ones where there'd be a report and then the blue boxes would come up, those are primarily based on the macro project. So those are interviews that were done between 2005 and 2008. And then the numbers that we're generating now are based since 2010. So when I was describing the AESHA cohort, and I was saying, 42% Caucasian, 40% Aboriginal, and so on, those numbers are more recent.
Your figures that you did, I'm not quite sure, just bear with me for a second, but the numbers that you did, were those women severely addicted to be taking into account the drug use, especially in lieu of women being forced or being pressured to not to use condoms? Those cohorts, were they severely addicted, not addicted,
No, that doesn't make sense, yeah. So the question is basically, with the numbers that I was presenting, was that women who were was it restricted to women who were addicted to drugs or not addicted to drugs and so on and so forth. So for generating those numbers, we looked at the entire cohort, so it would have been a mix of people who are using non-injection drugs, injection drugs, or none at all. And what we do in the statistical modeling to come up with those numbers is that we'll adjust for that so that we can kind of take out, to whatever degree we can, any bias that those factors put into those numbers. So the kind of odds ratios are like 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. That's after it's been adjusted for those factors.
One more. I'm not sure, Jill, sorry. I can't do both.
Oh, sorry.
I was just wondering if through this study, you're coming up with any kind of recommendations for service providers on the ground on how we can talk about the constitutional stuff and give me ideas on what we can do with that.
One of the papers that I wasn't able to kind of talk about here, but it's our most recent, I think, publication, was about what we termed unsanctioned safer sex work environment. So essentially there are some housing models that have been, innovative housing models that have been piloted here in Vancouver, where women are allowed to bring clients home to the buildings. And there's safety measures in place, cameras on the door, monitoring of the hallways, and so on and so forth, and then, kind of rights and responsibilities within those buildings. So, for example, maybe if you're allowed to bring clients in, but there's less ability to have overnight guests, that kind of thing. Anyhow, it's different in each building, but we looked at those and we were able to say that there's a significant increase in road safety and being able to do that. And some of the reflections that we got out of that report also included just people's sense of ownership and control over their own lives, and that there was a respectful relationship with the building staff around how they were living their life and making their money, because they didn't have to hide it. They could be open about it. They were supported in their safety. So that's one report that does, I would say, have some recommendations for service providers locally and elsewhere. And further to that, I think it tends to be more embedded in the reports per se, but through the work that we do with the Community Advisory Board and with the community partners, we're always trying to kind of channel back some of the things that we're hearing that way. But I'd be interested in talking to you more if you had some ideas about how that might work better.
Okay, thank you.